Medgar Evers' death served as a rallying cry for the movement. 2 months later, on August 28, 1963, a crowd of 250,000 gathered for a historic march in Washington. It was the largest demonstration for human rights that America had ever seen. Black and white, Jew, Protestant, and Catholic had come together with the hope that equality, liberty, and justice would prevail for everyone. But as for the man accused of killing Medgar Evers, he wasn't even close to coming to justice. The investigation into the June 12, 1963 murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers soon pointed to Mississippi white supremacist Byron De La Beckwith.
I think Beckwith felt like the NAACP, as he termed it in his own words, was the monster, the enemy, all those things. And so therefore, Medgar Evers was the symbolic head of that in Mississippi.
It wasn't just hatred for an individual human being, but hatred for an entire race of people.
There was a fair amount of incriminating evidence, including the proverbial smoking gun. Beckwith's .30-06 rifle, thrown down in panic, had been found at the scene of the crime. He'd attempted to wipe off his fingerprints, but one print remained. Beckwith was subsequently arrested and charged with murder. In 1964, a trial was held. To no one's surprise, an all-white, all-male jury failed to convict. Beckwith mocked the justice system, saying, "They can't convict me."
When he left Jackson, the highway was lined with people holding signs welcoming him as a hero. That hurt. That made me angry.
Still, Beckwith hadn't been acquitted. He'd gotten a hung jury. Prosecutors tried again, but fared no better. Another hung jury. For the next 2.5 decades, Beckwith was a free man, often spewing his racist ideology to whomever would listen. Then, in 1989, a series of events began that would bring Beckwith back to court. It started when Clarion Ledger investigative reporter Jerry Mitchell got a hold of long, secret documents from the then-defunct Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, a secret state-sponsored group that spied on civil rights activists. Mitchell discovered documents proving that the Sovereignty Commission had interfered with the judicial process prior to De La Beckwith's trial.
I got leaks of Sovereignty Commission records, which were still sealed, and they showed that the commission had, in fact, helped out Beckwith's defense at the time.
The State Sovereignty Commission was involved in helping Beckwith's lawyers pick the jury. So you had one arm of the state of Mississippi trying their best to get Beckwith convicted, and you have another arm of the state aiding and assisting the accused murderer.
When Medgar Evers' widow learned of this, she was eager to see a new trial held, one in which there was no duplicity during the jury selection process.
It was a thing of staying on top of it, because no one wanted to touch the case. And I said, we've come this far and I can't let go.
In 1989, Merle Evers convinced Jackson, Mississippi District Attorney Ed Peters to reopen the case. Peters assigned Bobby DeLauder to take the brief.
We began to find things, and by December of 1990, we had as much or more in that 25-year-old murder case than I do in many so-called contemporary homicide cases.
In 1994, Beckwith, in his 70s, was brought to trial for a third time. Perhaps the most important testimony came from 6 people who'd met Beckwith after the murder. Beckwith had bragged to them that it was he who was responsible.
These were people that Beckwith thought would have been impressed at the time the statements were made with what he had done. See, Beckwith wanted to get the credit for murdering Medgar Evers, but he didn't want to have to pay the price for it.
But in 1994, 31 years after the fact, Beckwith could no longer laugh at justice. A jury of 12 men and women that this time included 8 blacks found Byron Daylor Beckwith guilty of the murder of Medgar Evers. He was sentenced to life in prison. Merle Evers could finally put her 30-year struggle to rest.
All of the ghosts, all of the evil little bits surrounding this case escaped from my body at the time the guilty verdict was read. I became renewed. My children became renewed because finally justice prevailed. It was liberating. The hurt, the pain will always be a part of my life. But there's hope. There's vision for a brighter tomorrow. And it's so good to say, Medgar, you did not die in vain.